Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Let's start with sort of the questions that everyone asks first and foremost. Okay, so you spend this week and everyone likes the practices and pays more attention to that than the game itself. Who were the risers? Who sort of stood out and made the most of their time in Mobile?
Well, I mean, this guy was kind of already on the rise, but to start with somebody that, a lot of folks are already invested in, Tulane running back Tajay Spears is absolutely one of those players. He's, a guy that's coming into a tough position to always project in the NFL draft because folks are usually a little bit kind of weary around spending top draft capital for a running back because of the workload, the hits, all these things, sort of wear and tear that comes with the position. But he had himself another fantastic week in Mobile, showed that he can be a good pass protector, a good pass catcher, and of course the excellent runner that he is. Absolutely stole someone's soul and ankles at one point during some one-on-ones. So he had himself a fantastic week. And then you saw a couple of other players that had some, good moments and some big rises as well throughout the practice week. I'll mention, Riley Moss, the cornerback out of Iowa. He's somebody that, showed you what he could do as a technician, good speed. I think he timed out as one of the fastest MPH guys so far, throughout the practice week. Good physical corner, all of that, a guy that really helped out some of his draft stock. And basically the entire offensive line on both sides of the game. In the Senior Bowl performed extremely well, which didn't pan out super great for a lot of the defensive linemen, but there were still some that were able to shine around a really, really good set of performances around the offensive line, including, just to give one name, Cody Mauk from North Dakota State University, who showed his inside-outside versatility and won a good majority of his matchups.
Flip side of it, who went there and maybe didn't have the best week?
Well, I think, you kind of list any of the quarterbacks, honestly. I mean, Malik Cunningham missed the first day. I believe it was Chrissy Floyd who had the story about how he had food poisoning or something like that, missed the first day. Had a not so bad day in the game, but really, it was the Fresno State quarterback that had the better, matchup between all of them. And then, Jaron Hall, who was coming out of BYU, there were a lot of questions about him just from a size perspective. I think he answered some of those questions coming in at a shade over 6 foot, but got hurt during practices and wasn't able to participate during the game, which was a big sort of concern around his slight frame. And there it was playing, out in front of everybody. So I think the quarterbacks outside of maybe Clayton Tune had, some kind of shaky days throughout practices, and maybe, those stocks kind of fell down as they're going to be the most scrutinized of the quarterback position anyway.
You didn't mention Hendon Hooker, who I know didn't participate, but I understand was there, right? Was there a just sort of ear to ground? What was the scuttle around him there in Mobile?
Yeah, I checked in on Hendon Hooker a lot because he was one of the guys that I was most there for, even though, like you mentioned, he didn't participate with that ACL injury. He did interviews and things like that. So I poked around, talked to a couple of scouts and some other people and personnel and all that. And a lot of positive things coming out around Hendon Hooker. His focus on the mental side of the game, there's a big emphasis in all-star games like this. I think we think of the game a lot and the consumer thinks of the game a lot, but the players as well as the NFL personnel, what they care about are the opportunities to be able to sit down and interview these guys, talk to them a little bit and kind of learn the person over the player, which they kind of already know from the film. So really the gameplay that happens on the field, whether it be at practice or during the game, is kind of more about confirming your priors, right? You're just kind of making sure that what you knew about a guy is what you see. If not, then it brings you back to the tape. But really the interviews and things like that become the most important part. And that's really where Hendon Hooker still, ended up impacting, I would say, his stock. I think there are a lot of people who see him as anywhere in between. I think the easiest way to call it would be a top 100 prospect. But being a top 100 prospect as a quarterback means that you could be a first-round pick toward the bottom of the first round if the team likes you and wants to have that fifth-year option. His expectation is to be running by the end of March and then be ready and a full participant by training camp. If that ends up panning out once he does the rest of the medical checks over the course of this offseason, then that could end up propelling him even further back up the draft board.
Do you have any idea how the Saints feel about Hendon Hooker? Because obviously he's been a very popular name among fans.
Yeah, not specifically, but what I can say is this. I know that what I understand is that the interview with him went well, which I think you're going to hear about any interview. But then also the other piece about it, too, is that we spoke with Jeff Ireland, who does a lot of he's the assistant general manager, VP. He works with the college scouting department. And he's, the guy that effectively has been leading a lot of these successful draft classes over the past, few years. And one of the things that he said to us was that if we're asking him personally during his interview with us if he likes a dual threat quarterback or what kind of style he likes, he said he likes the dual threat quarterback. He likes the quarterback that's able to move, extend plays, do all that, but it has to be a dual threat quarterback that can throw when they're hurt. That's the way that he phrased it. Hendon Hooker strikes me as that person because he is an arm-first quarterback. He's a great pre-snap quarterback, which is something that I know the New Orleans Saints love. We've seen that time and time again. The NFL loves it. It's not specific to New Orleans. But he has the mobility to extend plays, kind of using his legs as an X factor. So if I'm looking for somebody within that Senior Bowl class that fits the bill of what Jeff Ireland told us he likes, Hendon Hooker's that guy.
Yeah. A couple more here with Ross Jackson. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Did you get a sense on who or what the Saints contingent there was focusing on?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about getting to know players. I mean, that was their big emphasis here. They sort of called, being out and watching practices simply kind of observing practices. And so, you take that into consideration. You take into consideration the fact that the Senior Bowl is a place where they get to sit down with prospects. That's kind of the biggest thing for them, is learning who, these players are as people and if they're good fits for their organization. Position-wise, more specifically, obviously quarterback's a big part of it. I would say defensive line has to be a big part of it, especially with the sort of unknown that lays ahead when it comes to, Marcus Davenport. Is he back next year? Peyton Turner, is he going to be healthy enough? Are Cameron Jordan and Carl Granderson your only healthy edge rushers? So if that's the case, you're going to have to invest in that position. They have no defensive tackles under contract presently going into 2023, though they extended the deadline with David Onyemata to hopefully facilitate and get that done. But as of right now, they don't have anybody because Jordan Jackson's now a Denver Bronco. And so with all that in mind, that's probably the spots where they're, paying the most attention. But obviously, you need to continue to look at the offensive line, which, continues to kind of delve into its depth year after year.
How'd the LSU guys do?
Ali Gay had a huge play, a couple of big moments in one-on-ones as well, but his kind of standout moment was during the game where he won very quickly around the edge to start or early on in order to be able to get a sack in live game. Jay Ward was an interesting one to watch. He struggled a bit in coverage, but we're talking about one-on-ones here, which are usually leveraged pretty well against the defensive player. Didn't see any kind of big flashes out of him for the most part. Probably did see a couple of pass breakups, some moments where he was able to get involved in that as well. I think, though, Ali Gay is maybe the one of the two LSU Tigers that were present that had kind of the best overall week, which is great because that edge rushing class is really, really good here in 2023. So you have to be able to separate yourself, and I think Ali Gay did himself some favors.
If you are not subscribed to Locked On Saints, what's wrong with you? He's
what is wrong with you?
he's Ross Jackson on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. You get his stuff at Saints Wire as well. Hey, man, always appreciate a couple of minutes. Great work. Thank you for the time.
Appreciate you, buddy. Always a pleasure. Take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.